Morning, everybody. Welcome to day 3 of my migraine, and welcome to the news agenda too, with me, Fleet Street Fox. And today I'm joined by the Mirror's showbiz editor features, Jessica Bolton. Morning, Jess.
Good morning, CZ. Lovely to see you.
You sound a lot cheerier than I do. Now, this is the People's Paper Review, so get into the comments, ask us your questions. We'll do our best to answer them for you. Those of you listening on podcast will just have to keep taking the pills like I am. So, what have we got for you today? Well, the Mirror has splashed on, and I like this, Go Wynne, Gone, as Strictly Come Dancing celebrity Wynne Evans is finally booted from the show's live tour over allegations of rather nasty sex talk behind the scenes. More on that in a bit. But first, I want to take us to page 25, where Only Murders in the Building actress Selena Gomez is in tears, Jess, over Donald Trump's migrant crackdown. And we have got a bit of video, and we're going to show it to you now.
I just want to say that I'm so sorry. All my people are getting attacked. The children. I don't understand. I'm so sorry. I wish I could do something, but I can't. I don't know what to do. I'll try everything, I promise.
Now, Jessica, this is your wheelhouse. Can you take us through this? Why is she crying exactly? What is she so sorry about, and why is she distressed?
Well, Selena's one of the celebs to talk out about Trump's new deportation plans, which were one of the first things to kick in after he was sworn in on the 20th. So we're only a sort of week later, and already there's 1,000 people a day who are being shipped back over the border. She's obviously she's got some Mexican heritage, and she's feeling very strongly, which a lot of the left in America do, about Trump's very stringent policies on immigration and illegal immigration that's going on. So that's why she's released this crime video. Interestingly, she deleted the video because she got a massive backlash online from the sort of the right-wing quarters, and quite a lot of people who are sort of in the middle who actually say, no, they support the deportations, because we're not talking here about people who had entered legally. It's talking about illegal immigrants that had come in. So it's a big powder keg of an issue anyway. But she's put this up, supporting those, because we've all seen those awful pictures of like the young kids, women and children and stuff, being taken up, being arrested by ICE, which is their authority out there to look after immigration, and taken back over. There was flights to Colombia at the weekend, which obviously there was a massive spat between the Colombian president and President Trump over the weekend about the way people were being treated with no dignity over this. So that is why she is crying. She did take it down. She did then post a second message saying how upset she was, and she's also removed that, but she does stand by what she's saying. So it's just a terrible circumstance, and I think she just wanted to do something to fight back about this very poignant Trump measure that he's done, because it was the very first thing that he started on.
Yeah, JC says Trump's grandfather was an immigrant. So were his grandmother. That makes Fred Trump, his dad, naturalized, and it makes Donny Boy a firstborn immigrant. The whole family's got to go under his own rules. this is sort of the division that's going on at the moment, and it's very difficult. We're not getting much of it reported back here yet in terms of the detail of this. It's just like that there's been an order to deport the undocumented migrants, and lots of people, as those who commented on Selena's video, to the extent that she wanted to take it down because they're being really quite nasty to her. I think that's what's happening. And there are a lot of Hispanics and a lot of migrant populations and first generation migrants who said, well, I'm going to vote Trump because it's not going to be me that he deports. It's going to be the bad guys. And that was the deal, that it was going to be people who've committed crimes, people who've committed a lot of crimes. There is a list somewhere, right? And he's checking it twice. And if you've been naughty, you're out, sort of thing. But Trump hasn't just ordered that this go out to undocumented migrants or illegals or criminals. He's told officials to find 1,500 people to arrest every day. Every day, every day. Now, when that happens, you get a number to hit rather than the criteria to find those people. You start scooping up people who, yes, some are criminals, the easiest people to scoop up, but people who've served multiple sentences, but others could just as easily be, as many undocumented migrants are in the States anyway, people who've been in the US for decades and pay their taxes, people who have children there, someone who perhaps is perfectly legal and perfectly has a right to stay, but happens to be in a family situation of some sort with someone who has to leave and gets scooped up in the same raid. There have been enforcement raids, and I'm going to use the phrase jackbooted because they are, in Chicago, Atlanta, Puerto Rico, Colorado, Los Angeles, Austin, Texas, already in less than 10 days. And arrests already, as Jeff said, nearly 1,000 a day. They're building up to this target of 1,500. It hasn't been reported much in this country. It is quite difficult for foreign journalists to operate in the US. You have to have a very special visa. And if you want to go anywhere near the border control enforcement officials, you've got to have some brass neck, and you've got to take your bravery in your hands, because they are not going to want to be photographed doing some things, and they will be quite anti, and you'd quite like to get it's not quite like working in Russia, but it's not a million miles away if you're trying to get into the country going through border control as a journalist. But the point is that you've got things like this then where, the only stuff that does get reported is when a celebrity acts like, and it's like all sad, and people can go, well, why is she so weepy? And the MAGA Republicans also act all horrid, going back to her and saying, well, she's being woke. But 1,000 people a day, 1,500 a day, they're not all going to be rotters, are they, Jess? I mean, the facts of life are, you're going to get some innocence in that.
No, of course. And it's it's interesting to say that Trump's actually increased the numbers of troops down there. So the Pentagon sent an additional 2,500 troops to the already 1,500 down on the southern US border, which is, land of the free and home of the brave, or whatever, which way around it is. It does not appear to be anymore. You're going to get all sorts of people, of course. I mean, obviously, it's a very difficult subject area, this, because there will be people that say, okay, people who are undocumented, who have got records, who have done offences. You can see why everyone would want them to not be in their country. We have the same argument here. It's like, why have we got, people that have come here illegally, who have got records elsewhere, who have, got criminal records elsewhere.
Yeah, they're not going to be an adornment to the country. Why should we let them in?
Why are they here? Why are they still here? How are they getting it? Exactly. It's that argument. So you can understand why some people can, I'm not going to say fall for Trump's things, but can sometimes support Trump's rhetoric.
Their views.
However, like we were saying, there will be people in Mondstadt who are unfortunately undocumented for various different reasons, that are paying their taxes, etc., like you said, which seems to be a very strange situation for us to understand about how somebody could be living there undocumented, but also on the grid, as it were. And, but I think this is a very unique sort of situation to the US, just because of its whole history, supposed to be this big melting pot, this big sort of sanctuary country where people could go. But that's kind of the myth of the sort of American dream there has been falling apart for decades, obviously.
Centuries. They've always been anti the next wave of immigration. They've only seen Gangs of New York with my favourite person, Daniel Day-Lewis, in it. That is all about people who are born in America having a problem with the Irish immigrants coming in. And then, of course, later on, Irish immigrants had a problem with the next guys coming in, and so on and so forth. A country of immigrants who stole it from someone to start with.
Exactly. It goes without saying that everybody's an immigrant into America, actually, if you look at it. So, really, but this is Trump pandering to the masses, pandering to that core demographic, his base that has got him elected, and he's just gone hard with something that's going to make headlines. It's going to make great footage because you've got all these people being shipped out. I say great, I mean awful.
Right. But it works. This is what he tried
in the worst way. Footage.
He said he was going to do it. He's done it. He looks tough. Barry has said that if we can just have his comment back very quickly, and I can read it out because I can't remember it off the top of my head. Thank you. Barry says, while not a fan of President Trump, I do feel what he's doing, what he feels is best for the bona fide American people. Everything you said there, Barry, for the first bit is absolutely dandy. But then you get to the last 4 words, bona fide American people. Who are they? Because get to the suggestion that only some people belong on each piece of rock in this world, and that everyone else is a foreigner to that bit of rock, and they don't belong in that bit of rock, and it's our bit of rock, whether it's here or America or somewhere else. And the bona fide American people, remember, are the First Nations people who had a whole lot of undocumented migrants turn up in the 17th century and had absolutely nothing to say about it because they weren't heard. So Trump's certainly not acting in their best interest. Paul says, he did just say I disagreed with Barry and Trump's doing what plays to his base. And now he says, given what's going on, how many Americans are going to illegally migrate to Mexico and Canada? Probably not very many, I should think. But I do think that a lot of the native tribes in America are looking at this and going, what are you on about, you idiots? You either are a nation of immigrants and a melting pot, and you have the American dream, and you open that to other people, or you're going against everything that you were established to achieve. And Trump's got elected on the basis of fear and division, and he's playing that card, isn't he? So where does this all end, I suppose, is the question. Trump has said he wants to deport 1 million immigrants. Now, doing that is not easy. He's already had a battle with Colombia, and he's had to give some concessions to get planes of migrants to land there, although again that's not been much reported. He's now talking about sending US citizens to a third country if they've committed crimes, paying someone a fee to take his own rotten eggs. Now, I don't know what country would want the worst criminals America could come up with that they would want to get rid of.
He's probably going to try and ship them to Denmark in the whole Greenland debate, Susie.
Do you know what? Guantanamo.
Anything past him.
It will end up being somewhere that is American soil, technically, but not bona fide American soil, but technically American soil. But that they can control, but they'll just dump people in, I suspect. Probably even those who've served their term, right? And they've done their crime, they've paid their penance, and they're still going to get deported. There are legal moves against a lot of the stuff that he's doing. For example, border officials have been told they can now raid churches, right? They've always been banned from doing that but they've now said, no, we want you to go into churches. A lot of people who are maybe undocumented, who's going to try to stay under the radar during the week, do still want to go to church on Sunday. But the Quakers have filed a lawsuit against that, citing the constitutional right to freedom of religion, which you'd think is probably going to the Supreme Court is going to have to be considered. If this gets bogged down, Jess, in all these legal rights and wrongs, in lawsuits and court cases, which is how America always goes, right? Even Salem witch trials are all linked to court cases in the end. 1,000 people a day are getting arrested. Presumably they're all being detained somewhere. They cannot, in a big camp. You haven't got anywhere to put them. You can't deport them all while you're thinking about it. And if you've got a really big camp with 1,000 people a day going into it, we all know what that's called. It's going to get very nasty, isn't it? And that's ultimately what Selena is weeping about, is just she can just see this stuff happening to people, of her father's own background, and going, well, I can't do anything about it. And even though, I mean, you can say, yes, that was the way our country voted, and he's got a mandate for doing it. But everyone else who's there who disagrees with him, there's absolutely nothing can be done unless you want to start supporting some of the lawsuits and putting your millions of dollars into that, I suppose.
There is. I think what Selena's actually managed to do there is get everybody sort of out of her followers. She has 400 million followers. So just anything she posts gets those people talking. Now, Gen Z are obviously quite active anyway, politically, but just anybody that can put this out there to start the conversation amongst their followers is doing a good thing. So her doing that video has got her fan base thinking about this, talking about this. They will be wanting to know why Selena's so upset. I mean, obviously they probably know already, but that is, I mean, it's an incredibly powerful thing that she has done, and she's put herself front and center of that, and she's taken the flack back because she can afford to, because she is sort of hugely successful, and she's, you know,
she can afford the personal security she would need.
She can afford the personal security. She can put herself out there, and for herself and for her reputation, because we respect her for being liberal, etc., it won't do any harm for her to say this. So it's fantastic that she's done it. Why she deleted it, it seems to be being a bit questioned at the moment. You can understand why. Also, it doesn't really matter. As soon as you've put it out there, it's all around the world anyway. If you delete it or don't delete it, everyone knows you've done it. So, you know, it is. I think she's done a good job here of getting her view out and getting the people who look up to her thinking and talking about the issues, whichever way they end up feeling about it. And like you say, yes, things could get very, very bogged down. It's a massive sort of contradiction here. I mean, I think if you actually read what it says on the Statue of Liberty, it does not say that if you don't meet certain criteria, you're not considered, that you can come in and help. It says, no. Give us your needy and your
huddled masses yearning to be free.
Exactly. It doesn't have a little star and a little appendix saying if they, you know, adhere to these certain conditions that we have set out. I mean, to be honest, this is one of the big areas that obviously Trump's looking at. I mean, there's many concerns that we got to have. You've obviously got the Jan 6 people that were released and pardoned when he came in. It's the list is unending, but as you say, he was voted in. He's got a mandate. How much
you can do in the space of those 4 years, or perhaps the first two before the midterms, who knows? Richard says 60% of polled Americans seem pro these ejections, but that's perhaps to be expected in the first week of office. Will the Republicans and Reform UK eventually wise up? It can go too far. One point I would make is that the undocumented migrants in the US, unlike our own illegal asylum seekers who aren't allowed to work, they are allowed to work, and they contribute about $40 billion worth of taxes. They also provide sort of the bottom rung of just about every industry in the US, fill millions and millions of jobs, and contribute an awful lot culturally as well. And one of the things, although you can say, as we had a little while ago in this country, you can say, someone has voted for this, we've got a mandate, we're therefore going to do it, Brexit. The economic impact of that will last for a very long period of time. And perhaps now the constant argument we're seeing, and which is going to be in the news today, about economic growth and parties of every sort having to find a way to cut budgets and, you know, have building and start putting in reservoirs in places maybe where the villagers don't want those reservoirs to get some economic growth, is all because the effect of Brexit has made our economy sort of flatline. Now, whether you think Brexit's good or bad, keeping out all those migrants who went home because they were fairly near home, right, quite regularly, and paid taxes, and switching those out for migrants from further away to keep the NHS going and everything else. They don't go home because they're from further away, and they tend to bring their families with them, which is a bigger problem for migration, is it not? If you don't like migration, why didn't you stay in the EU? Anyway, we'll have to see what the long-term effects are. I predict that they're going to be economic. One of them is going to be bad economic news as a result. And Trump will say it's someone else's fault. We will see, won't we, how it all pans out. Now, talking about the biggest story that's in Britain today is probably Rachel Reeves talking about an extension to Heathrow and some British, big infrastructure projects and so on. But the only story people are genuinely enervated and interested in is going to be the BBC's handling of the Wynne Evans sex talk saga. Now, this is the Welsh opera singer who was the face of the Go Compare insurance ads and was one of the celebrity dancers on last year's Strictly, who is now on the national live tour. Jess, again, this is very much your forte. It's your wheelhouse. Can you catch us up on what exactly has happened?
Yes. So Wynne didn't have the best run on Strictly, let's put it that way. So during the last series, I think you'll remember there was the controversy when he was seen during one of the sort of group huddles. His hand looked like it was quite high up on Katia, and that she wasn't very happy about it.
She moved, didn't she, while they're on camera?
She moved a hand off him like that. Now, the video was quite damning. It looked, but they both came out and said, no, we were just messing about, etc. We just having gays. So he's already coming off the back of that, sort of slightly stained his kind of time on Strictly already. So it was a surprise when they did go with him for the live tour, or stick with him for the live tour in the first place, because he's one of the more sort of controversial figures of the last series. However, he did. And then he went and blew it all again, Susie, is what happened. Because during a photo call where they're all lined up, he was caught on camera saying to Jeanette Manreira what he said was a joke, where he used a certain sex term, and it did not go down very well. You can see in the small video clip, you can see that he's made this joke to Jeanette, who is beloved. Everyone loves Jeanette. Worst person to make the joke to. It is about a particular sex act involving 3 people. I think we're allowed to say what it's called, so I will let you say that one, Susie, in a minute.
Filthy mouth. Thanks very much. I'll just describe it very briefly. So there was a big mass photo call. All the stars of the show and the celebrity dancers were lined up on some tiers to have their picture taken. Jeanette, who is presenting the live show, came out to stand in the middle of them. She was between Wynne Evans and Jamie, the guy off EastEnders whose last name I can't remember.
Jamie
Borthwick. And Wynne Evans says, she's coming. And he says, do you fancy a spit roast, to Jamie, who then sort of winces. Jeanette doesn't make any reaction. A few seconds later, Alyash, one of the pro dancers who is her husband, looks over to her and says, are you all right, darling? She goes, yeah, fine. And it's plainly something which kind of, they're all just brushing over and grinning for the cameras. But it's just, why would you say it? And why would you say it when you're in front of a bunch of journalists who've all got their cameras out?
Why would you say it? When would you say it when you know that you've already been caught saying something or doing something slightly inappropriate on camera that has been interpreted in a way that is very, very negative? This is his argument, is that he didn't mean to cause offence. He's now so originally the BBC said they'd given him a caution for making the spit roast joke to Jeanette. I mean, you couldn't make this up, Susie. Like, why would you? I mean, he's obviously had no media training whatsoever.
Yeah.
They said that they would keep him on the tour. The BBC then got a huge backlash from people saying, hang on a second, this is off. This shouldn't be right. So now he has been taken off the tour. He is taking time away from his radio show that he also has for the BBC, and taking the rest of the tour off to time to reflect and do some learning, which appears to be the new code word for, oh dear, I've messed up. I better go and reflect about myself for a while.
Otherwise known, I think, now as doing a Greg, isn't it?
Yes, it is. It's doing a Greg. Everyone comes down and they need to have some time for their own sort of mental healing after causing a drama. Yeah. So he's off doing that now. So he's off for the rest of the tour. He has apologized, and he's apologized to those who are coming to the tour who now won't see him.
Yeah, I
So
bet they captured.
I'm sure they are. I'm sure actually when most people booked their tickets for the Strictly tour, the first thing they wanted to see was Wynne Evans from the Go Compare ads doing a bit of a salsa around the floor. But, you know, I'm sure they will recover and still have a jolly good night, Susie. But I mean, it's a slightly is one of those where some people will go, oh, he's just a bit old school. He was just making a joke. But there's no excuse for that sort of thing nowadays, because I mean, we all know you don't say things like that nowadays.
No, it's not just that you have to watch what you're saying, or that it's now unacceptable when it used to be. It was never acceptable. It was never once good manners or reasonable to comment about that in front of other people, in front of the woman concerned. And it was never a joke. It's not funny. It's never been funny. And it is fairly atrocious. You bear in mind that a lot of the Strictly demographic is going to be older people and families. The whole point of Strictly is that it's good family entertainment, that granny can go with the kids and the parents and you all get something out of it. And this kind of thing is really distasteful. And my daughter is quite often like Strictly, and she's seen this stuff on the news and she's going, what's he said, mummy? And I can't actually explain it to her because it's going, well, he said something nasty about Jeanette. And that's all I can...
All you can really say, because anything else requires a little bit too much explanation.
That's what kills the Strictly family thing. As Strictly's already had these scandals with Giovanni and the bullying allegations last year. There's been other issues with some Strictly stars here and there, and whether they're snogging the people they're with or not. So, you know, and the BBC traditionally, if there's one thing you can guarantee, is that the BBC can make a scandal worse by somehow making it about themselves rather than the actual people who've committed the faux pas in the first place.
For the team every time and seem to end up in more trouble than the person that's caused the problem. Like,
well, I'm not even gonna... We know they've handled this badly, because day one you should just say, mate, you're not on the tour anymore.
Yeah.
Because everyone who goes to the tour is going to be thinking about this, and it's ruining the brand.
But and everyone's going to be asking about it in every single place. They'll be doing press in every single place. Everyone will be asking about it. It'll be the sort of story at the tour. What's Wynne's up to? Has Wynne said anything else? Anything that Wynne's done during the whole thing that could be conceived badly? You know, all of these things would overshadow it completely. And like I say, I was staggered they kept him on the tour in the first place after what happened.
We know that they did, and we know that they fluffed it up. But from your perspective as a showbiz reporter, why is it the BBC keep fumbling this really obvious football as to how you should play it? They always do it wrong. Why is that?
It's a very good question, actually, because I don't 100% know. Sometimes you want to go, why would you think this? But obviously there's stuff going on behind the scenes. I mean, they've got to try and support their stars as best they can. Also, like, Wynne's got a series coming up with Joanna Page, which has already been shot. They're already still committed to it. They're traveling around Wales, sailing around Wales, looking at, you know, different places along the way. So they've got this beautiful travel show, which will be really, you know, I'm sure will be really good. It's already filmed. And unfortunately, the star of it goes out and makes this. So maybe they were just hoping they could deal with it and it would be done, but they failed to appreciate that people feel quite strongly about these sort of things nowadays, and you can't just pick and choose which ones we're going to get most cross about. That's the problem.
And the BBC carpet's got a lot of stuff under it already. You can't keep sweeping stuff under there. And I've got to say, sailing around Wales, visiting tourist hotspots may well be perfectly reasonable programming, but it's not going to set the world on fire. And you know, it's also
you think it would actually appeal to some of the older viewers of Strictly, so you can understand why they'd be quite keen on it. Someone here, I'm sorry, the comments just moved, so I didn't see your name, but Barry Smith here, who said that he feels that Strictly has turned toxic, which is what you were saying. And I do feel I've spoken to so many people this year who just weren't as excited about it, because it was that sort of family friendly, this is nice, the whole world's horrible, but Strictly it's all sequins and it's all sparkle and everyone loves each other. But we know that's not we always knew that wasn't true, but we know that's not true now. The program's kind of lost a little bit of its shine.
Yeah, I've got an 8-year-old, and for the first time, we didn't bother watching it this year because the Giovanni thing really took the thing off it. None of us wanted to watch it. Me and my mum didn't want to watch it either, and for us not want to watch it, it really is.
And it's a shame. It's a real shame because it is one of the few sort of programs that does appeal to everybody like that people do watch in real time now.
Yeah, I think it needs a rest. It needs to come off the air and have a few years not doing. But the trouble is, it's such a big earner for the Beeb. They really don't want to do that. And it's been going, 20-odd years. Simon says it's very inappropriate, old school, mind your language, there's ladies present. It's not just whether there's ladies present. It's the fact that it's about another human being, and it's not okay, and it was never been okay. Kaylee says, I'm sick of people ridiculing this man. Men make comments about women. He hasn't sexually assaulted anyone. You're entirely right, but men do make comments about women, and perhaps some of them shouldn't, Kaylee. And if the comments they want to make are flattering, or even if they're unflattering, if they want to say Susie Boniface is an ugly old bag, I don't mind too much. But if they want to say something sexual about Susie Boniface in Susie Boniface's hearing or not in Susie Boniface's hearing, I don't want them to say it. And I especially don't want to say it in public in front of journalists in a way that the whole blooming world hears it. I think that's disgusting behaviour. My grandmother would have said it was disgusting behaviour. And it's not like a modern woke Me Too thing. It's just, no. What's happened, I think, Jess, is as a result of Me Too and other stuff, is that women now are going, no. They used to put up with it. We used to just go, oh, like Jeanette did, right? She's slightly younger than me, but roughly of an era. And you just, okay, that's what they do. Fine, grin and bear it. And people have just started saying, no, we're not having that. Call it out and you behave yourself, young man.
The sort of zero tolerance approach that is somehow been collectively agreed by people that we're all going to take a zero tolerance approach now. So,
and my mother is 80, and if she's like that, and she's definitely not woke, and she's definitely not Me Too, but she's not having that, and not on Strictly. Thank you very much. Steve says the BBC allows this to happen time and time again. Do they not vet people before inviting them on the show? They should go compare. Oh dear. Where next then for Wynne and Strictly in the BBC? What happens to Wynne's career? He's got this show coming up with, but how long is that going to be on air for? And can it actually go out now? Considering what's going to happen with the tour? Just because, our fans are going to think the whole thing's tainted and continue to stay away. And is the BBC ever going to learn?
I think the tour's fine. I think the tour will be fine. I think, there's a lot of the big stars are on that tour. We already know it's a real shame that Chris couldn't do the tour, who won. So most people would be more upset that he's not on it. And speaking from than Wynne from the Go Compare ads. Very sad that he's not. I've got to also say, whilst we're talking about Wynne, he has also allegedly got dumped by his girlfriend as well. So it's been a really, really bad week for Wynne. And in terms of his career going forwards, that's a difficult one to say. In the past, I would have said, give it a few months and it'll sort of end up petering out, and the scandal sort of mute away, and give it a year, everyone have forgotten about it completely. However, like you said, we've kind of sort of taken a more of a sort of zero tolerance approach to stuff nowadays. And look what happened with Greg Wallace. I mean, for years there was all these things, and he was making these kind of sort of jokes, very similar kind of jokes, and then suddenly it all comes out, and he's not going to be troubling our screens for a very long time, if ever again. So I do think we're getting tougher on that. I think there's less sort of forgiveness over some of these things that happen, and I think that's probably correct, because you're in a very privileged position if you're put on TV to be out there to represent, people and stuff like that. You're very lucky to be in that position. So it's not too much to ask to behave in a manner.
It's Wynne's agent I feel for in this situation. They've moved heaven and earth to get the bloke off the Go Compare ads to get onto Strictly. The world's biggest window. setting up for like 10 years of gentle presenting gigs in about Welsh valleys, and he's completely fluffed it. And you're just sitting there with your head in your hands going, oh my God.
There's all my commissioners gone.
Nightmare. And I'm sure there are probably some men in the comments that are complaining that women say things like this too. And I'm sure that some women do say it. And I'm sure that there's all kinds of remarks often said about where, especially when a man seems to be in some kind of sort of sexual situation, you know, they're a stripper or they're on telly or they're in the pub or they're going to give him one or whatever. Yes. But have you ever heard of a woman saying that at a press call for a national show, which is in everybody's living room and which has a family branding on it? That's the issue. It's not that men are better than women or women are better than men. It's about the situation in which you say it, the person who says it, the position that person is in to influence others. That's the difference. A couple of women are a bit pissed in the pub saying something a bit off colour about the barman. Yeah, it's off. And you can say so and shut up, love. But doing it at a press call for Strictly is a different thing. Steve says if he's saying things like that in that situation, what's he like when no cameras or journalists are present? Maybe he's the same as everybody else. Maybe it doesn't matter. I don't know. But if his girlfriend's dumped him, I think there's probably something else going on myself. I don't think Ophelia Butts is your real name. Just go compare previous behaviour of this kind. It's just not right. Quite right, Ophelia. Now, we do manage to find, we'll see if the BBC will ever learn, don't we? I mean, I'm not going to put my money on it. I think they're going to just find a way to fudge it up no matter what. Now, thank you everyone for taking part. Thank you for your questions and comments. We have managed to find some good news in the world for you. And here it is. Now, there have been many echoes this week of the horrors of war, but there is an auction of one particular bravery medal which may put a bit of a spring in your step today. Tommy the racing pigeon got lost in a race in 1942, was blown off course. He was found exhausted, of all places to land, in Nazi-occupied Holland. Luckily, a Dutch postman found him and took him to the local pigeon fancier, who happened to be in the resistance. Recognising Tommy as a British POW, that is a pigeon of war, he strapped a message to his leg about Nazi positions and nursed him back to health and sent him home. Tommy was shot by a sniper on the way back. Oh my God, Tommy, this should be a film. But he did make it back to Cumbria, where his owner found the message and passed it on to the authorities, and it later led to a successful RAF aid on a Nazi munitions factory. Wow! He was later presented, Tommy was, with the Dickin Medal for animal bravery, quite rightly too, and it's going on auction this week for an estimated £10,000. Now, Tommy, of course, is long gone. But Jess, is this proof, do you think, that bravery in the face of great adversity can live on long past your time on Earth?
Yes, and can I just, I mean, there were many pigeons that did some amazing things during the war, and what an uplifting story. I'm sure there's so many that have won various different medals for some of their bravery, and they were absolutely indispensable because of what they could do. I mean, there was one that saved a whole British sort of regiment who they were still in somewhere that was about to be bombed by our side, but they'd gone in to do a mission, but they had to get the word back, we're still here, we haven't pulled out yet, please don't come yet. And they did it by carrier pigeon. He saved like 30 lives. It's amazing. I do love these stories, I really do. Tommy, well, I mean, it's fantastic. Such a shame they're having to sell his medal, though. But I think, like you say, Tommy's little grand pigeons are probably quite old now and well past it. So, And
I think Tommy as well, the fact he was an accidental war hero, he was just taking part in a normal pigeon race. He wasn't there for work, as it were, but he managed to become a resistance fighter. I think it's brilliant. And Steve says he probably got his medal quicker than the nuclear veterans did theirs. Jason says, you better start keeping pigeons again. We're going to need them. It would be nice to think that Tommy was buried with full military honours, but I suspect, it being the 40s, he ended up in a pie. There he is. Thank you, Tommy. Anyway.
Poor Tommy.
Poor Tommy. You deserve your medal.
Disney cartoon written all over it, hasn't it?
It has. It's got, come on, that's got Pixar, it's got Oscar-winning animated feature film. Let's do it. Hollywood, if you're watching. Tom Hanks, this is your next big voiceover job. Thank you, Jess, for taking us through that. Thank you, everyone, for taking part. If you want to stick around on these channels till noon, you will see Prime Minister's questions, which I'm sure will be all about Heathrow. Fingers crossed that Gavin and Stacey or Wynne Evans might
be about Wynne Evans, are they?
Interesting. And they'll be on these channels. Otherwise, we will see you again on Monday for another edition of the News Agenda. Until then, everybody, stay safe. Take care. Tatty bye.
Bye.